My name is Haley, and as you can see,
I love music. And I mean all kinds of music. Rock music. Country music. Hip hop. I love it all.
but my favorite kind of music is the kind that involves cooperation. Cooperation is working together to do more than you can do alone. Take an orchestra, for example. It takes all kinds of cooperation for an orchestra to come together.
They've got strings, woodwinds, brass, and of course, percussion.
By themselves, those instruments sound just fine. But when they all play together, they really make some noise. And music isn't the only place where cooperation makes a difference. Cooperation shows up in sports, at school, at home, and, as we'll see in today's story, in tent building. Really, really, really big tent building. You'll see what I mean. See you soon.
A long, long time ago, God's people, the Israelites, lived in the area of Egypt. As their numbers grew larger, a ruler named Pharaoh worried the Israelites would turn on him. As a result, the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt for hundreds and hundreds of years. God then called Moses to help rescue the Israelites from Egypt. This was quite an ordeal, but eventually Pharaoh let the Israelites go. Moses led the people into the desert. God was guiding them to a new home. Throughout their journey, God cared for them with food and water. God showed up as they encountered their enemies. God was never far from the Israelites, but God wanted the people to know this beyond a shadow of a doubt. God wanted to have a place to live among them, so God called Moses to Mount Sinai. Through a thick cloud covering the mountain, God gave Moses guidelines for how the Israelites should live and care for each other. Then Moses learned about building a place where the Israelites could also feel close to God. Check this out. God said, "Have them make a sacred tent for me. I will live among them. Make the holy tent and everything that belongs to it. Make them exactly like the pattern I will show you." This sacred tent was called a tabernacle. Now, before we get into the details of the tabernacle, let's get something straight. God is present everywhere. There is nowhere that you can go where God isn't. But this was thousands and thousands of years before Jesus. God wanted to make sure that the Israelites knew that He was with them in a special way. The tabernacle would be a place for God to come and be with the Israelites. God went on to provide very specific instructions on how this dwelling should be built, and look, wow, there were so many details that Moses could have been overwhelmed by the plan, but God intended for lots of skilled people to make this happen. God handpicked Aaron and his sons to serve as the priests. Speaking to Moses, God said, "Speak to all the skilled workers. I have given them the skill to do this kind of work. Tell them to make the clothes for Aaron. He will wear them when he is set apart to serve me as priest." Part of God's plan called for the priests to wear specific clothing. The tailors were given special instructions to make the robes, the turbans, the sashes, and more. Plus, they were only to use certain colors like gold, purple, and blue. Then, God selected 2 men with a number of skills to help. God said, "I have filled him with wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, with all kinds of skill. He can make beautiful patterns in gold, silver, and bronze. He can cut and set stones. He can work with wood. In fact, he can work in all kinds of crafts. I have also appointed the son of Ashmach to help him." These men were skilled in making beautiful patterns in several metals, wood, and stone. And God had given many more people creative abilities to help too. The skills were not limited to a select few. God gifted a number of individuals to make yarn and fine linens. Some were gifted at teaching others the needed skills like sewing and carving. The entire community had come together to build a dwelling place for God. Moses looked around at their completed work and was pleased. In the end, the tent, the tabernacle, contained tables, altars, specific garments, lamps, the tent itself, support beams, and a special box called the Ark of the Covenant, a place where God would come and live. The work God requested required expertise and skills far beyond any one individual's capability. Rather, lots of skilled people worked together to meticulously labor over the task. When everything was finally in place and the priests were ready, a cloud covered the tent and the glory of God filled it for everyone to see. Isn't that amazing? When the Israelites were wandering in the desert, God asked them to build a big tent. A tent called the Tabernacle, where the people could worship God and where God could live. And God wanted the people to work together to make it. So they needed people with all kinds of different gifts and skills. Designers, people who could sew, people who could work with stone and find metals. Plus, they needed teachers who could train people in how to do all those things. God knew that if they worked together, they could make something incredible. God has always been big on cooperation. Think of Jesus. He could have done so much on his own. He could work miracles, and yet he chose to work together with a unique group of 12 disciples as he traveled and he taught. God wanted them to work together. And guess what? God wants us to work together too. You see, we are all unique. We all have things that we're good at. We could be good at sports, or good at math, or good at coming up with stories. And by ourselves, we could do just fine. But when we work together, when we use our gifts with the gifts of other people, then we can really make some noise. So here's the big idea to remember today. God wants us to work together. Working together helps us get things done faster. That helps us get things done better. Plus, it helps us to grow the relationships with the people all around us. And that is a good thing.